What's going on, Packers Nation? Welcome back to another video of Packers Latest. I am your host, Taylor Bretl, keeping you up to date on the latest news of the green and gold Green Bay Packers. A happy Thursday to all of you watching out there, and a huge shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. If you're new to the channel, I welcome you. Feel free to subscribe, leave a like, turn on that notification bell so you know when these videos go live, and if you're a returner, I welcome you back as always. Got a coach's show, to say the least, on this one. Got talks about Hafley, got talks about Harbaugh, where he officially landed. Matt Laflur is always in the talks. We got tons and tons and tons of talks on coaches for the Packers, not for the Packers. So let's just jump right into it. Got to start it off with the Packers defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, who has, continued these head coach interviews. Hafley, a very strong season with the Packers as their defensive coordinator. Near the back end of the season, kind of a different story, but was playing with a pretty beat up defensive crew, to say the least. Hafley, one of the top candidates out of, I believe there's 9 total open head coach positions. One, they were all open. One of them did fill up, which we'll get to in the next point, but Hafley definitely making his rounds. This is per Albert Breer on X. This was posted on Tuesday, saying Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, who's interviewing with the Titans today, which did happen, will interview with the Dolphins tomorrow, which did happen on Wednesday, and the Falcons and Raiders on Thursday, per source, which again, this, it's in the morning, 10 a.m. Central Time. You may be viewing this. Hafley, these interviews are yet to happen, but they're expected to happen later in the day today. So that's already 4 teams for a head coaching position that Hafley is meeting with in just 3 days. So his name is definitely buzzing around the NFL. The Dolphins, an interesting spot for him. The Titans, I feel like all of these could be interesting spots for Hafley. Obviously, in my opinion, I would love for the Packers to find a way to keep Hafley, but unfortunately, if you can get that head coaching position and the Packers want to keep Hafley but not as a head coach, it's unlikely that he will stay with the Packers. I mean, he kind of talked about in his media availability, he wasn't really focused on it despite getting all these calls. He was focused on, the playoff game against the Bears. Unfortunately, a 25-point fourth quarter, and just like that, your season's over and he could be shipping off to somewhere else. So Hafley, a solid run with Green Bay. The back end of the season, kind of a different story, but also that defense was so banged up, so you can view it kind of 2 ways. But that's going to get us into our next point, talking about one of those head coaching positions that filled up in the New York Giants hiring John Harbaugh. This was a big rumor of a destination for Hafley if he were to leave Green Bay. The Giants were definitely one of the top names that swirled around, so this one is now taken up. I think another big thing to note on this, I saw some of you guys in the comment section, some other people on X, not me personally, but some people wanted Harbaugh. If Lafleur was gone, they would have loved to bring Harbaugh in. My opinion, I didn't really want Harbaugh, especially kind of with the recent track record, just kind of being able to get into the playoffs but not do much. Kind of sounds like where the Packers are now. I believe Harbaugh is 3-6 in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. And Harbaugh, the contract details at the time I'm recording, they're not finalized in any of those ways, but he's going to want a pretty penny. So my opinion, didn't really want the Packers to go for him. I know it was a top name. It's a big name with a lot of success. I believe he's coached for 17 years. Maybe I have that number wrong, but it's just right around there. So yeah, lots of history for Harbaugh, but he will now be the head coach of the New York Giants, which eliminates a destination for Jeff Hafley, which eliminates him going to the Green Bay Packers. So feel free to leave a comment. Did you want Harbaugh to be repping the green and gold in any fashion? With that fashion, more than likely being a head coach, did you want him in the Packers organization, or are you fine with the Packers, not trying to jump on him and kind of sticking with what it seems like trying to agree on a contract with Matt Lafleur? I mean, it's definitely interesting how this coaching cycle is panning out, but I feel like with Harbaugh now, going to the Giants, all these new coach hires are going to start rolling, and maybe this deal with Matt Lafleur will kind of, reach an agreement sooner rather than later. Before we get into our next segment, got to give a huge shout out, as always, to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Football playoffs are here, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the gridiron action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick if your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, rushing yards, receptions, and more. Get them right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at this Bears and this Rams game. A Bears team the Packers have been very familiar with, and lots of players to look there. I'm looking at Caleb Williams going higher than his 226.5 passing yards. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use promo code FOOTBALLFAN to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code FOOTBALLFAN. Underdog, make picks, win money. Again, I'm looking this Bears and Rams game. I know it's a Packers channel. We're talking about the Bears. Kind of want to forget about the Bears after what we watched, but we've seen a lot of them this season. We've seen a lot of them historically, but with that being the Packers' most recent matchup, unfortunately their last matchup of the season, we saw what Caleb Williams was able to do, and man, he's pretty good to say the least. So I got 5 picks here on Caleb Williams, starting off with those passing yards. 226.5 is where it sits. I got higher than that. I mean, against Green Bay, don't get me wrong, he threw the ball between 45 and 50 times. I think it ended up being 48, maybe that many times. Not fully sure what the number was, but I believe it was 48. He went for well over than 300 yards. His line at 226.5. I feel like he's still going to be slinging it. Don't get me wrong. The weather for this game, we're still a couple days out. Seems like it's a high of 16 and a low of 4, and there's going to be wind gusts, so it could be tough. But, it wasn't as cold against Green Bay, but those wind gusts were very present there, and Caleb Williams was still able to let it fly. We go to the rush yards. We talk about the pass yards. Let's go to the rush yards. I got lower than 20.5. This is a tough one because sometimes Caleb Williams doesn't run at all, but the games where he does, he usually goes for a lot more than 20.5. Against Green Bay, he had 4 carries for 20 yards, so he was lower in that game, and I feel like this Rams defense, this Rams team, will be able to hold Williams in the pocket a little bit better than the Packers were able to. So I got lower than 20.5. We go to the passing touchdowns. I got higher than 1.5. Caleb Williams has gotten 2 passing touchdowns exactly on the dot in his last 6 games. So why not make it 7 straight games of exactly 2 passing touchdowns? Originally looking at this, I was kind of teeter-tottering because Chicago's run game is really good. This is nothing to Caleb Williams. He just might not throw it in the air that much, and he can even take a touchdown, on the ground himself. But I'm going to go higher than 1.5 with just seeing that he's had 6 straight games, one of those now being a playoff game, with 2 passing touchdowns. He's also surpassed 19 completions in his last 3 games, which takes us to our next line at that 19.5, which is going to have me lean towards higher. Again, trends are bound to end at some point, but it's the playoffs. It's a big game. It could send the Chicago Bears to the NFC Championship. And I feel like after that game against Green Bay, to where, Chicago's offense was really stagnant for 3 quarters. I mean, for Caleb Williams to still surpass all those numbers when having 1 super strong quarter on top of 3 okay quarters, I feel like if he can average that out a little bit better against the Rams, there should be a decent amount of hires on this list. But it takes me into the last one, 4.5 rush attempts. I'm going to go lower on that one. Again, against Green Bay, he had 4 for 20 yards, so that's kind of right where the line sits at for both of these for him, but I'm going to go lower. Again, I feel like this Rams defensive line, their linebackers as well can hold Williams in the pocket a little better, but with the weather being pretty cold, you might not want to throw the football as much. It's really hard to know. Caleb Williams is a younger quarterback. Don't get me wrong, you play for Chicago, so you're expecting the cold weather. It's not like a Matthew Stafford situation to where you're a veteran, you've played in every environment ever, but in the cold he struggles. Caleb Williams, the sample size is still pretty small, but again, in the cold against the Packers, he had a big 4th quarter and made it count when he needed it most. But I am still going lower than 4.5 rush attempts, but I feel like he could definitely be flinging it through the air. So feel free to leave a comment down below what your picks are if you're looking at this game, or if you're looking at this game maybe on the Rams side of things. Maybe you're looking at a former Packer and Davante Adams, seeing that he still has that hatred towards the Bears and that he really wants to hit his hires in this game. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. Would love to read some of those. I think this is going to be definitely an interesting game. You got the LA Rams, which is a popular Super Bowl pick, but they are a lower seed than the Bears, so they have to travel to Chicago, and you're a team that plays in California, playing in, what wind chills could be in the negatives for this game, so it should definitely be an interesting one. But again, a huge shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Make sure to make your picks today. It's going to take me into the third point of this big coaching episode show, whatever you want to call it, talking about how the Cowboys are requesting to interview Packers defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington. This is something I didn't really expect. That Dallas, that defense was arguably the, one of, if not the worst defenses in the NFL this season. They're in search of a defensive coordinator, and they're leaning towards the Green Bay Packers, where, it's defensive line coach, also the run game coordinator. You got a guy like Micah Parsons, a former Cowboy, within that room, but still tons of other guys. This Packers defensive line, in my opinion, had its positive flashes, but also had a lot of negatives. But don't get me wrong, Devontae Wyatt getting hurt doesn't help. Micah Parsons getting hurt doesn't help. And a couple backups to them getting hurt doesn't help. So definitely kind of a messy situation this season. But this is per Josiah Anderson on X with the official announcement saying, "I'm told the Cowboys have requested to interview Packers defensive line coach and run game game coordinator, DeMarcus Covington for their defensive coordinator vacancy per league source. So, good for Dallas. They got to go out and find somebody interesting to really get, narrow in here with the Packers. Maybe, just looking at a Packers, point of view, this is all they're looking for from them. Maybe they're looking around at other teams. Don't have too many sources, too many notes on that. It is still pretty early with a lot of these coaching searches. The head coach is definitely the main search for a lot of teams. Dallas not looking for a head coach. They're looking for a defensive coordinator. So that's clearly their number one priority in their coaching search. But this would be a pretty big loss, in my opinion, if the Packers do lose Covington. I feel like he's done a pretty solid job with the team. Again, you don't really want to lose many coaches. Again, go back to the Laflur talks. Lots of people are on different sides of that. Like, in my opinion, I'm not trying to go away from Covington and go back on the floor. But, we talk about losing coaches, bringing some new ones in. It's just like, if you lose the guy, is the guy you're going to bring in, is he going to be better? And who is that going to be? That's always my big thing on this. Lafleur has definitely had his many, many miscues. But again, if you let him go, who are you going to bring in that's better, especially with a guy like Harbaugh now off the board? Do you try to extend the floor? Do you just keep him for this one contract year? It's all a mess. It's all a swirl. This is why the Packers and that organization answers these questions and takes care of it. And I just talk about it with you guys. Probably, a little bit more fun, a little bit less stressful to watch it from the outside. But again, DeMarcus Covington, I think, has done a great job with the Packers. It would be unfortunate to see him go. And don't get me wrong, this defensive line in the run, the run game defensively has had its struggles, but the injuries do not help with that at all. Going to take me into my last point for this episode, talking about kind of something a little off topic, kind of tying it more in with the Rams. The head coach of the Rams, Sean McVay, spoke on his relationship with Matt Lafleur, kind of when asked about how he's preparing for this game against the Chicago Bears. So on First Take a couple days ago, Stephen A. Smith was kind of talking about, Ben Johnson and, the locker room speech and his relationship, or how he feels towards the Packers, Matt Lafleur, and how it's clearly not positive in any ounce of his body. In quotes from Stephen A. Smith saying, friends of Matt Lafleur around the league can't stand Ben Johnson. Pretty clear and to the point. Again, how involved is Stephen A. Smith in all this? Who knows? I'm just taking the quote from First Take that I saw and giving it to you guys. Lots of people have different views on this. But with Ben Johnson, with his introductory press conference saying, I enjoy beating Matt Lafleur 2 times a year. That was definitely a powerful statement, but he lived up to it, and you could tell he does not like this Green Bay team. So Ben Johnson definitely making himself known. That the Packers community and Matt Lafleur aren't big fans of him, but sometimes other teams could drag into that as well. Sean McVay, in his media availability, a quote from it, kind of talking about this game and prepping about it. And, he's had a relationship with Matt Lafleur and being on the same coaching staff. He said, what would you guess? No, you know what? We watch the tape, we do our work, and Matt is a very close friend of mine. So kind of saying, we watch the tape, we do the work, we're the Rams, like this is what we do. But Matt is also a very close friend of mine. So is he using that? Is he taking any notes Matt Lafleur has, anything he knows about Ben Johnson and the Bears? Is he asking him for that to give him some advice? I don't know. But again, all due respect to Matt Lafleur and the Packers, they've lost to the Bears the past 2 times they faced them. So I don't know how much information you truly take. But, maybe Stephen A. Smith's quote is kind of true on, other people are starting not to like him, friends of Matt Lafleur, obviously Sean McVay being one of them. So who knows? That's just one example. You can, tie out to a lot of other names, or you could say this is just totally one big thing that's getting way too blown up and not many people really care. Kind of just interesting to look at it. I thought I'd mention it. There's clips of this media availability on X or on YouTube. You could definitely find it somewhere, but who knows if Matt Lafleur is kind of, helping the Rams out if McVay is asking for some advice. But Lafleur has had his last 2 times facing the Bears, 2 ugly losses. So not sure too much what he would help out with there. But nonetheless, that's all I got for this video of Packers latest. I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Hopefully we'll have more direction on, Matt Lafleur and this extension. Tons and tons and tons to talk about this Packers team, despite it being the offseason for them. But as always, go Pack, go.